The first step I'm going to talk about today, the course is going to have three phases, and the first step is to ground. So like that little seed, it needs to first put those roots down. And I feel like this is a crucial step that we miss in spring because we get so excited. We have all these new projects and we're just like this and that and this and that. And we need to refocus. We need to take a second and root. So what does it mean to ground? You know, we can just kind of say that, oh, just ground yourself. What does that really mean? Well, what does it feel like to be grounded? Well, we feel centered, which is kind of another word like grounding, but what does that really mean? But we are centered. But I feel like we feel safe and we feel comfortable in our own skin when we're grounded. We know how we feel, both physically, emotionally. We're not confused about how we feel. And we're present in our body. So physically, we know how we feel. We know how we feel emotionally. And from this place, decisions come easily because we know how we feel. We know what our priorities are. We know where we're headed. We're grounded in this time, space, moment in our bodies. And grounding also has a feeling of connection, because what are we grounding in? We're grounding in ourselves, but when we deeply ground in ourselves, our deep self is connected to something bigger. So that kind of helps that feeling of ease that we're not alone. So that's how grounding feels. How does it feel to be ungrounded? Well, I'm sure this is kind of how most people operate, how most people in our capitalist society operate, right? Instead of being in our body, we're very much in our head. We feel maybe kind of wired and tired. We might feel uncomfortable in our skin, kind of this dis-ease, like, I just don't, it doesn't feel good. Hi, Jessie. Talking about grounding. So yeah, you feel anxious when you're not grounded. And then decisions are hard because you're so scattered, like this way and that, you're picking up everything that it's hard to make a decision because you don't really have a central access point. You're like, well, I can see this being a good decision or this or that, or I don't know what I want. That's ungrounded. And so bringing it to, and we're disconnected, right? We're not, just like grounding, we feel connected to a bigger thing. Might feel isolated, kind of scattered in the wind, in the spring wind, if you will. So this is a common thing in spring, that we feel kind of scattered and we didn't take that time to ground. So I want to talk now about the nervous system, because I can talk about this in abstract sense, right? Oh, you're grounded. Oh, you're ungrounded. But this is a real thing in our nervous system. And it matches up with our nervous system. So our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, automatic, many of you have probably heard the term fight or flight or rest and digest. So biologically, we're supposed to be in rest and digest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, about 80%, even more of the time. That should be our norm. Our sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight. And that should be something that, okay, there's a threat. I see the threat, I go into fight or flight, and then the threat is resolved and I go back to parasympathetic. But what has happened in our society is that many, many people are under chronic stress, which means that fight or flight has become their norm and the threat is never resolved. So if we think about it in this term of grounding, ungrounding, when we're grounded, in the parasympathetic, your blood flow, the energy in your body, it's going to all the important, well, actually, the important physical organs in your body. It's distributed. So I'm going to actually switch back to sympathetic because I think it'll be easier to explain this part. So when you're in fight or flight, the blood, the energy actually goes to your limbs so that you can run really fast away from the tiger. So it leaves systems that are not essential for your survival, like digestion. You can survive, for a few minutes or whatever without digesting. You need your heart, your beat, but you can put digestion on hold. Reproduction. So yeah, those are all things right in our gut area, in our center area. So yeah, you don't need to be reproducing while you're running away from a tiger. So that's why being under chronic stress can have massive effects on your digestion and fertility. So all that energy is out. It goes kind of in your brain to quick thinking and into your limbs, out of your center. So uncentered. So that's sympathetic, which I kind of equate with that uncentered feeling, that ungrounded. Then grounded. So that's when the blood flow goes and really nurtures and digests the food. And okay, we're not running from a tiger. We can digest breakfast. We can, look around and really feel that juiciness of spring, right? That fertility, that everyone's looking for their mate. The birds are chirping into that reproductive system. So we feel juicy. And we feel comfortable in our skin. The energy goes to that center, goes to that stomach and that our reproductive organs. It goes there, and we start to feel at ease in our body. We're more present in our body. That energy, can kind of descend. So that is that feeling of grounding, that rest and digest. So I'm just kind of explaining these things to kind of first start with kind of that spiritual sense of what it feels like to be grounded, ungrounded, but then show you that there's actually a real scientific aspect to this too, that connects to the nervous system. So however you want to think about it, it's a real thing. So I'm kind of a person that thinks of it both, science and spirit. And so this process of grounding, to kind of get into how can I ground? Well, grounding is personal. There's some that come into play. So what works for everybody's nervous system, but there's also this real checking in with yourself and this knowledge of yourself, because the way you ground, what your anchor is going to be different. So what do you anchor in?